Jura's regeneration ability is not what you might think. Yeah, I'm Nim, still riding the vibes of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 24. Actually, one of Jura's regeneration abilities is still a huge mystery to this day. Why and how does this root-based concept even work? We know that the last time a divine tree human regenerated or healed its injuries, it had to return to its base, which is the Shinju dimension. But Jura is an exception. Instead of returning to the base to heal his wounds, Jura actually summons Shinju roots to regenerate his entire body. And what shocked fans the most was how Jura managed to restore or even create a Rinnegan eye. But here's the real question. Are these roots different from the ones in the Shinju dimension? Or are they a completely new type of root? And of course, this also connects to the Shinju roots Matsuri once mentioned, when she explained that those very roots told her about something Boruto did in the Land of Wind. However, to truly uncover the real truth, for some reason, determining the final conclusion in any discussion about the Shinju roots seems to be connected to the infinite Tsukuyomi tragedy. Maybe we should at least take a quick look back at how the infinite Tsukuyomi and the Shinju roots actually work. As we all know, after the infinite Tsukuyomi is activated, a massive beam of light is projected toward the moon. After that, the moon acts as a reflector for the Genjutsu's light, spreading it across the entire world. And every living being on Earth who sees the moonlight will automatically be trapped inside the Genjutsu. They instantly lose consciousness, and the mind of each person caught in the Genjutsu is pulled into a reality shaped by their deepest desires and happiness. And of course, the roots of the Shinju tree play a crucial role because each root will also spread and trap each victim of the illusion. In other words, after the victims enter the illusion, their physical bodies in the real world are immediately wrapped by the giant roots of the Shinju tree itself, right? And in the end, everyone who is wrapped by the roots of the Shinju tree, their chakra or energy will be slowly absorbed by the tree. In other words, the Shinju tree uses the chakra of each victim of Mugen Tsukuyomi as fuel to grow an even bigger Shinju tree, which will produce chakra fruit as the absolute goal of OTSUTSUKI itself. And here's the big question. Aren't you curious why, during the Fourth Shinobi War, especially when Kaguya was sealed by Naruto and Sasuke, the infinite Tsukuyomi was still active? In fact, not only that, don't you also wonder why in the current Boruto era there is still a white Zetsu? I know that this doesn't exist in the manga, but can we take this into consideration? We know that the origin of the white Zetsu goes all the way back to Kaguya's era. After activating the infinite Tsukuyomi, Kaguya trapped all living beings on Earth in a genjutsu and absorbed their chakra through the divine tree. Those who were caught by the tree lost their consciousness and were eventually transformed into white Zetsu, soulless husks of their former selves. Centuries later, Madara Uchiha discovered this truth and used Hashirama's cells to replicate the process. By combining them with the remains of the Shinju, he created countless white Zetsu clones to build his army for the Fourth Great Ninja War. So what about in the Boruto era? Why do white Zetsu still exist? But is their existence actually normal? Logically, there are a few reasons that still make sense as to why white Zetsu still exist. One possibility is that the leftover roots of the divine tree never fully released all the people trapped by the infinite Tsukuyomi. It could be that the release performed by Naruto and Sasuke didn't completely free everyone who was affected. Another reasonable explanation is that some white Zetsu may have escaped the Fourth Great Ninja War. But what if, in the Boruto era, there are actually shinobi who intentionally created new white Zetsu? Does that make sense to you? Out of all these possibilities, which one do you think is the most logical, guys? But if some of you are confused and wondering what the connection is between the Shinju roots that regenerate Jura, the victims of the infinite Tsukuyomi, and Kaguya's sealing, here is the real answer. Although the Kaguya has literally been sealed and the Tsukuyomi Mugen has been abolished, it turns out that the roots of Shinju still exist beneath the surface of the ground, even at the ends of the earth. All of these roots have not completely disappeared. And that meant Jura, as the pure reincarnation of a Shinju tree seedling, he had an ability or access that allowed him to use those Shinju roots. As long as he was the original seedling of the Shinju tree and reincarnated Jubi, Jura would always be able to use the power of the tree's roots. And that is why Jura can bring up Shinju roots wherever he is. So, as long as his location is still on planet Earth, the roots of the Shinju tree will remain. But maybe as an exception, if the planet is a new planet where Shinju trees have never been planted, then it means that Jura cannot use a tree root. So the bottom line is, these Shinju roots will continue to exist on planet Earth, even if the Jubi are sealed or eliminated. Perhaps this is because of their root-like form, where roots will continue to live as long as their food source is maintained, and that is the case with Shinju's roots embedded in the Earth's surface. And even though Jura comes from the reincarnation of a small, raw, or early-stage Jubi, it is possible for him to gain great power, not because of his origins, but because of the additional power from the remnants of the previous Jubi. But if you're asking why Jura doesn't have passive regeneration like the Jinchuriki Obito or Madara, the reason is because Jura is not a Jinchuriki like them, but rather Jubi's body is divided into two parts. One is Jura, and the other is a Shinju tree. Because even though we categorize Jura as an evolved Shinju, I don't think his evolution has reached a truly perfect stage. Mainly, we have to consider how the initial form of the Ten Tails itself became its manifestation. But aside from that, there are a few other things that could explain Jura's regeneration, or rather his healing ability. If you remember the fight between Jura and Himawari in Chapter 11, Jura came to a conclusion. Himawari is not just an ordinary Jinchuriki, she is something more. Jura considered Himawari's healing ability to be extraordinary, on a level beyond that of a normal Jinchuriki. In fact, it's more accurate to say that it resembles the Biju themselves. And actually, as long as there is no official explanation, all these speculations and theories will continue to be inconsistent until we find a new reason. Because with Jura's statement in Chapter 11, it raises a question. Why is it that Jura, as the reincarnation of the evolved Ten Tails, still can't passively regenerate? Well, there is a possibility that Jura's ability to bring up the roots of the Shinju tree is his personal ability to regenerate. So, regeneration doesn't necessarily just come from the Shinju tree, but is actually created by Jura with his own abilities. And as a final conclusion, first, the regeneration ability of the Shinju root that can regenerate Jura anytime and anywhere, it is a Shinju root that still remains since the era of the Fourth Shinobi World War. And it also means that Matsuri, who once mentioned the tree root that could tell her about Boruto even though the tree root was underground, did not rule out the possibility that it was a remnant Shinju tree root from the Kaguya era. So since Matsuri is also basically a divine tree human, it makes sense that they can talk to each other. Second, the Jura regeneration ability of a Shinju root, that was indeed a special ability of a ten-tailed reincarnation and not of a Shinju root left over from the Kaguya. But of the various assumptions and theories, which one do you think makes the most sense, guys? But if I had to choose, for some reason, option number 2 feels the most logical to me. But what do you guys think? Is it point 1 or 2, or maybe you even have your own theory? So yeah, that's pretty much it. Around 8 minutes breaking down Jura's regeneration ability. If you have your own analysis or theory, I'd be more than happy to hear it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Nim, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Databayo.